Good evening, dear friends. I'd like to thank Rebecca and, of course, the local Spiritual Assembly of Maitland for organizing such a great event so far. It just sounded grand as to what an auxiliary board member of the Baha'i faith is. I'm quite nothing. So please don't think you're in the presence of, like, someone, special or important. If you actually search up auxiliary in a dictionary, it means to help and to assist or support. So my role really within this community and the Baha'i faith communities that I serve is to just help and support the friends. So when they asked me, naturally I was really happy to come here and see the friends here and what a turnout it is. And what history is Maitland making as far as the local spiritual assembly goes. So dear friends, my role here tonight is to welcome you all and to give you quite a brief introduction, which I hope I can do justice to. My introduction brief, just like the ministry of the Bab, which only lasted 9 years, will take you on a bit of a journey to who the Bab is and why we're here today. So the Bab, otherwise known as born, Sayyid Ali Muhammad, born on the 18th, 19th, October 20th, was the forerunner of the Baha'i faith, the herald, the promised one. And his mission was to actually prepare the way for Baha'u'llah, who's the manifestation of God for the Baha'i faith. As at that time he referred to him as him whom God shall make manifest. Now, friends, I had prepared something, but seeing the energy in the room and the reality in this room, I'm not going to use what I prepared. And I'm actually going to try to take everyone on a journey with myself back to Persia in 1844. Now, you can either close your eyes with me or you can just imagine. I'm not that creative. But let's go back there in Persia in 1844. The economy is now collapsing. The army has now been beaten by Russia. It is chaos. The religious leaders are now in constant clamor between each other. And it is a time where, the West and the East are now waiting for this promised one. In the West, we were waiting for the return of Christ. As prophesied on 1844, he will return. And then in the East, we were waiting for the Cayenne, which is the promised one. And at the time, it kind of left this gap, this void in Persia, where disintegration of society and the social forces was very prevalent. And we see during this time, this light rise from Persia, Almost think of it as a new dawn, as waking up and the sun is rising. And this light cracks through this darkness. And we have a youth, younger than myself, proclaim to the people that he is the promised one that everyone has been waiting for. That he is the culmination of all the previous revelations to date. And he is now here to bring an advent much greater, a revelation much bigger than what he is. Now you can imagine how this would have rattled Persia in 1844. Mostly the people in power. So we're now talking about the clerics, we're now talking about the prime minister, the Shah of Iran, and how this would have, although they were paying lip service to waiting for this promised one, how they knew once how he would arrive, it would actually affect their position in power. So naturally, just like every other manifestation of God, when they come into this world, the Bab was tested. And many proofs and many revelations from the previous messengers of God, he gave testimony to. And he was able to perform acts of which had never been seen before in the history of this progressive revelation that we believe in. And even at this point, dear friends, he was tortured. bastinado. I don't know if some of the friends know what that is. That is where they tie your feet up to a wooden pole and they whip you till your feet start bleeding to the point that you're not able to walk. And eventually his martyrdom was put forth, and they killed him. They killed him on July 9th, 1950. Now, amidst this, we had what we call the crisis and victories of this glorious dispensation. And that is how swiftly the Bab was able to proclaim his faith and how many people actually declared to his beliefs. But at the same time, we had this negative forces, this power trying to disintegrate. Now, what did the Bab bring into being? Friends, coming into more the sense of the discourse in society today, let's look at prior to 1844, you really didn't have discourse on the equality of men and women, if you think about it and look in history. Prior to 1844, there was no discussion on the abolishment of poverty. Prior to 1844, we believed that science and religion were two different things and not one. So this discourse, from him just bringing this discussion into being over time, has now led to these, the organizations we see, the community building efforts that we see in neighborhoods, from children's education to the junior youth program, to youth, to the movement of families going through this force of change, positive change, whether Baha'i or not Baha'i. And one of the biggest things that the Bab did was enable all the religions to be part of something that doesn't discriminate the others. He gave proof that every religion, this is what we call the progressive revelation, that every manifestation of God, an educator of time, is right to his beliefs, and it is a righteous act. So here we are, friends, on a day where, celebrating 200 years of the Bab's birthday. And everything I mentioned, friends, had more of an earthly and physical and material conception to what I was sharing. But one thing we must remember, and this is something quite large, and this is more on the spiritual sense, is that we know that the Prophet Muhammad was the seal of the prophets, closing a cycle. And then we know that the Bab, when he declared his mission, when he declared his faith, actually cracked open a new cycle, the cycle of fulfillment. Now, this might go past some people's head, and this might be absorbed by some people. That's okay. I'm more than happy to have a chat later. But the point here is that during this time, both materially and spiritually, humanity was revolutionized through history, through the act of this youth who will now celebrate their birthday. And through that, a new faith was born, which we call Baha'i faith. So I hope that you guys can enjoy the night and, really take in also, friends, why are we really here? At the end of the day, and this is from the bottom of my heart, I share this, we're here to celebrate. So we can also see this as one event, or we can see this part of a process where even in our own lives, we can reflect that how can we be a protagonist of change in our own personal lives, or in the community we live in the neighborhood and society. And I think that's the most important thing. As humans, what is our pay it forward? What is our service to mankind? And I see a lot of radiant faces. I see a lot of children, a lot of youth, a lot of young adults, families. This brings me joy, and I see so many different races here. And I'm just taken by, as to the time that you guys have sacrificed also to come join us, to celebrate with us. And I thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. And I'm really looking forward to getting to know all of you. So thank you, Rebecca, for having me up here. And friends, I'm going to share this, and whether or not the local spiritual assembly feels to commend me or to punish me later, is that, friends, when you have a local spiritual assembly of 9 members, both women and men, come together in an area where their whole vision and the purpose of that gathering is the protection to bring about justice and the unity and the love within that community. A house of justice, a house where it's looking to seek the justice of the community. And then when you have someone like myself to come and learn from them and to come and consult with them, it truly humbles me as an individual, as a person when I leave. Now, Maitland Local Spiritual Assembly was formed under a year ago. Am I correct? Hasn't been 1 year. And friends, a lot of these friends are from the communities just like yourselves. You know, they weren't born into Baha'i families, or they weren't, they're just through the community. And I would really like to pay homage with absolute humility and meekness, with so much love to the local spiritual assembly of Maitland, that under 1 year they have been able to turn around such an event and to really work towards the betterment of their community, that I personally think it should be an example to everyone as individuals and community members at the way they have worked. So thank you, and thank you for showing me that love as well in the community. Thank you so much for